My parents sold my childhood home to fund my sister's lifestyle, so I vanished, and what happened next shattered their perfect image. I'm a 29-year-old guy. And that old house was more than bricks and walls. It was my childhood, my peace, my proof that I mattered. My grandfather built it with his own hands before I was even born. He poured his soul into every corner, every wooden beam, and he'd tell me, a man's home is where his story begins. I grew up believing that. The creak in the floorboards was a lullaby. The chipped paint on the porch told stories of summers spent playing catch. And the old oak tree in the backyard was where I'd sit when life felt too heavy to understand. My family was ... complicated. On the surface, we looked loving. Sunday dinners, birthday cakes, laughter in the kitchen, the kind of moments people post online to prove they're happy. But underneath it all was an imbalance that I never stopped feeling. My sister, Lily, was the golden child. The dreamer. The one everyone adored, no matter how many times she messed up. I was the steady one, the responsible son, the one who didn't need praise because I was strong enough without it. Lily could crash her car, quit her job, or forget my mom's birthday. And somehow it'd still end with, she's just going through a phase. Meanwhile, I could bring home a promotion or fix a leaking pipe. And the best I'd get was a distracted, "That's good, honey." Still, I never complained. That house grounded me. It was where I learned to be content, to find comfort in things that didn't need validation. Sometimes I'd walk through its narrow hallway, late at night, and feel safe, knowing that no matter what happened, no matter how much life favored Lily, this house would always be mine too. At least that's what I believed. Until the day it wasn't. After Grandpa passed, the house started feeling quieter. Not empty, just heavier somehow, like the walls knew things I didn't. My parents took over. For a while, it felt like nothing had changed. But I started noticing small cracks, not just in the plaster, but in how things worked around us. Lily had moved back home just until she figured things out. That was 2 years ago. She was 26, unemployed, and constantly chasing new business ideas that never went anywhere. Every time she failed, Mom would sigh and say, "She just needs support, not judgment." Dad would nod and open his wallet, even though I knew our savings were thinning. Meanwhile, I was working 2 jobs a day shift at the warehouse and freelance web design at night, just to help with bills and keep the mortgage afloat. I didn't mind. It was family. But something in me twisted every time I saw Lily ordering new clothes online while claiming she was too broke to help. One night, as I came home exhausted, I caught Mom and Dad whispering in the kitchen. I wasn't eavesdropping, but I heard my name and stopped at the hallway. Dad said quietly we could sell the house, clear the debt, and give Lily a clean start. But what about him? Dad sighed. He'll understand. He always does. Those words hit harder than any slap. He'll understand. Like my feelings were some kind of renewable resource they could just keep taking from. I didn't confront them that night. I just went to my room, stared at the ceiling, and listened to the wind tapping against the old window frame. For the first time, the house didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like it was slipping away. Piece by piece, the day it became real wasn't dramatic at first. No shouting, no storm, just a quiet Saturday morning that turned into the worst day of my life. I came home from a long night shift, half asleep, and smelling of engine oil, and noticed a stack of glossy papers on the kitchen table. Real estate flyers. Photos of our house, taken from angles that made it look like a stranger's property. "Morning, honey," Mom said too casually. Her tone had that fake brightness that always came before bad news. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. "What's this?" I asked, though I already knew. Dad cleared his throat. "We've decided to sell. The market's good right now. It's the responsible choice." I laughed, a bitter, confused sound. Responsible? This house isn't a stock investment. It's our home. Mom looked at me like I was being unreasonable. "We can't hold on to sentiment forever. Lily's business needs a fresh start, and she's finally serious this time." It felt like the ground tilted under me. "You're selling Grandpa's house to pay for her next failure?" Dad snapped. his voice sharp. Watch your tone. This family needs unity, not resentment. Unity. That word echoed in my head as I stared at them, the people who raised me, taught me about loyalty, now dismantling the only thing that ever felt permanent. Lily strolled in my argument, coffee in hand, acting clueless. You'll still visit us, right? She joked. I walked out before I said something I'd regret. Outside, the wind was sharp, carrying the smell of dust and pine from the backyard. For the first time, the house looked unfamiliar, like it had already decided to leave me behind. That night, I packed a small bag. I didn't know where I was going yet. Only that staying meant watching everything I loved be sold to fund someone else's dream. The morning of the sale was overcast. The sky a dull gray that felt like it was mirroring my chest. The house was stripped bare, walls once lined with photos now ghosted by lighter rectangles where frames used to hang. Every sound echoed differently, hollow and unfamiliar. I walked through each room like I was saying goodbye to a living thing. The kitchen still smelled faintly of my grandfather's old coffee blend, though the pot had long been replaced. My hand grazed the counter where I'd once done homework, where Dad had taught me how to sandwood, where Mom used to hum while cooking. I wanted to remember it like this, not with lawyers, voices and paperwork rustling over its silence. Lily was dressed like she was attending a celebration, all smiles and perfume, scrolling on her phone as movers carried boxes past her. You don't have to look so gloomy, she said lightly. This is a new chapter for all of us. I almost laughed. A new chapter for you, maybe. She shrugged. You always overreact. It's just a house. That line hit like a blade. Just a house. To her, maybe it was. To me, it was the last thing tying us together. I found Mom outside near the realtor's car. She tried to hug me, but I stepped back. My throat burned as I said quietly, You didn't just sell a house. You sold everything good left between us. Dad didn't even look up. He was signing the final papers. I left before they could respond. My car was already packed, a few clothes, some savings, and an old photo of Grandpa sitting on the porch swing. As I drove away, I didn't look back. I couldn't. I told myself I'd rebuild somewhere else, start clean. But deep down, I knew I wasn't running from them. I was running from who? I became around them. Starting over felt both liberating and terrifying. I rented a tiny apartment 2 cities away, cracked tiles, thin walls, and a constant smell of burnt coffee from the cafe downstairs. It wasn't much, but it was mine. For the first time in my life, there were no expectations, no comparisons, no family drama humming in the background like static. Just silence, raw and unfamiliar. The first few weeks were hard. I'd wake up expecting to hear the creak of the old hallway, or Mom calling for breakfast, or Lily's music blasting through the walls. But instead, I heard traffic, strangers arguing, and sometimes nothing at all. I threw myself into work, picking up extra shifts, learning new skills, and slowly building a routine that didn't depend on anyone's approval. Over time, the emptiness began to fade. I started running in the mornings, eating better, even laughing again. I saved money, real savings, for the first time in years. Sometimes I'd pass a house that reminded me of ours and feel a sharp ache in my chest, but it didn't sting as much anymore. Healing was slow, but it was happening. Every now and then, I'd think about reaching out. Maybe to check in, maybe to prove I was okay. But every time I picked up my phone, I'd remember Dad's words, "He'll understand. He always does." That sentence still burned. They never understood me, they just used my understanding as permission. 3 years passed like that. Quiet, steady, almost peaceful. Then one night, while finishing a late project, my phone buzzed with a number I hadn't seen in years. The message was short, just 8 words that made my stomach twist. "It's Lily. We need your help. Please call." I stared at the screen for a long time, caught between anger and curiosity. After everything they took from me, what could they possibly want now? I didn't respond right away. I must have read Lily's message a dozen times before I finally called. When she answered, her voice didn't sound like the confident, spoiled sister I remembered. It was shaky, desperate. "Thank God you picked up," she said. Everything's gone wrong. I didn't say anything, just listened as she cried through the phone. Between broken sobs, the story came out in pieces. The business my parents sold the house to fund, the one Lily swore would make them proud, was a complete scam. She'd borrowed money under their names, forged signatures, and when it all collapsed, they were left drowning in debt. Their accounts were frozen. The bank repossessed their new home. They were living out of a cheap motel on the edge of town. "We need you," she whispered. "Mom's sick. Dad's not himself. I don't know what to do." I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat but swallowed it. "You mean you finally ran out of people to clean up your mess?" "Please," she said quietly. "You're all we have left." For a long moment, I said nothing. The silence between us felt like years of resentment compressed into one breath. Then I exhaled. "Text me the address." When I pulled up to the motel the next evening, the sight hit me like a punch. The perfect family image my parents used to flaunt was gone. Dad sat outside smoking something he hadn't done since I was a kid. Mom looked frail, her hair streaked with gray. Lily barely made eye contact, her once polished nails bitten down to the skin. I should have felt vindicated. I should have walked away. But instead, I felt something worse, pity mixed with fury. Dad looked up when he saw me and said hoarsely, "We knew you'd come. You've always been the good one." I wanted to believe that was a compliment. But all I heard was another reminder of how easily they'd used my goodness to destroy me. When I walked into their motel room, the air was thick with tension and stale cigarette smoke. The curtains were drawn, even though it was daytime. And the small table in the corner was stacked with unopened mail and empty coffee cups. My mother looked up from the bed, eyes red and tired, while Dad sat in silence, staring at the floor. "Thanks for coming," Mom whispered. Her voice cracked. We didn't know who else to call. I stood by the door for a moment before saying, "You could have called years ago." Before selling the house, before everything fell apart, Lily spoke up quickly, like she'd been rehearsing. "We didn't mean for this to happen, okay? I tried to fix things. I thought I could make it work." I turned to her. "You forged their names, Lily. You stole from them." From me, she flinched, but still tried to defend herself. "You think you're so perfect? You've always judged me." Dad's voice broke through, low and defensive. "We all made mistakes. But she's still your sister." That word "still" sent a flash of anger through me. "And I'm still your son," I shot back. "You just never treated me like one." The room fell silent. The hum of the old air conditioner was the only sound. Mom reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "You didn't just lose money," I said quietly. "You lost my respect, and that's something you can't buy back." I could see tears forming in her eyes, but part of me didn't trust them anymore. For so long, I'd been the one holding this family together. Now they were asking me to rebuild what they destroyed. Before I left, Dad said softly, "You'll come around. You always do." This time, I didn't answer. I just walked out into the cold evening air, realizing that for the first time, maybe I wouldn't. A week after that confrontation, I got a call from my uncle, my grandfather's younger brother. We hadn't spoken in years, not since the funeral. His voice was rough but steady. "I heard about your folks," he said. "Did they ever tell you about your grandfather's will?" The question stopped me cold. "The will?" "They said everything went to them equally," he sighed. "That's not true, son. Your grandfather left that house to you. It was written plain as day. I saw the papers myself before they were changed. I felt the world tilt again, just like it had the day they sold it." "Changed? What do you mean changed?" He hesitated. "Your father had it amended? Said your grandfather would have wanted to do what's best for the family. I didn't believe it then, and I sure don't now." My chest tightened as I listened. So it wasn't just emotional betrayal, it was legal, deliberate. The house I had spent years helping maintain, the home I'd thought they had every right to sell, was never theirs to begin with. That night, I pulled out an old box of documents I'd taken before leaving, receipts, notes, even a copy of the home's insurance file. Buried in the pile was my grandfather's signature, his handwriting unmistakable, next to the date that matched the original will, proof that he had left it to me. I sat there for hours, staring at that paper. Every memory of my parents twisting into something uglier. They hadn't just chosen Lily over me. They'd stolen what was rightfully mine and lied to my face about it. For the first time in years, I didn't feel sadness or nostalgia. I felt something colder, a quiet, focused anger. They wanted to destroy my foundation. Maybe it was time I took theirs apart, piece by piece. I barely slept that night. Every thought circled back to that will, the lies, the betrayal. The years I spent believing I was the one who walked away, when in reality, they had pushed me out. By morning, anger had turned into something else, a heavy exhaustion that settled in my chest like lead. I went to work, but my mind wasn't there. Every keystroke, every ringing phone blurred into noise. Around noon, I stepped outside, leaned against the brick wall, and finally let it sink in. My parents hadn't just chosen Lily over me. They'd rewritten my history. They'd erased my name from the one thing my grandfather meant to leave behind for me. That night, I drove past the old neighborhood. The house was gone, replaced by a sleek, glass-front home with cars I could never afford parked in the driveway. My grandfather's oak tree was gone too. The sight hit me harder than I expected. I sat there in my car for almost an hour, staring at the place that once meant everything. For the first time in years, I cried, not just for the loss of a house, but for the realization that my family, my blood, had never really valued me. It was my rock-bottom moment. I felt small, hollow, and utterly alone. The thought crossed my mind, what was the point of being the good son if all it ever got me was pain? But as I sat there, something shifted. Maybe it was anger, maybe survival instinct. I realized I didn't owe them silence anymore. They had spent years crafting a perfect image, the selfless parents, the struggling daughter, the estranged son who didn't understand. Maybe it was time to tell the world exactly what happened. Not for revenge, but for truth. And deep down, I knew once I started, there'd be no turning back. I spent the next few days thinking about what to do. Part of me wanted to burn everything down, to call them out publicly, drag their lies into the light, and finally let the world see who they really were. But another part of me hesitated. I wasn't that kind of person, or at least I hadn't been, until they took everything from me. So I started small. I gathered documents, the old insurance file, the will copies, text messages, even screenshots of their posts bragging about Lily's business success. Then I wrote, not some angry rant, but the truth, every word of it. I titled it, How My Parents Sold My Inheritance to Fund My Sister's Lifestyle. I posted it anonymously online, not on Reddit or some forum, but on a long-form storytelling site where truth always found a way to travel. Within hours, it blew up. Comments poured in. Thousands of strangers who'd lived through similar betrayals shared their stories, their anger, their support. Someone even tracked public records showing my parents' property sale and the loans Lily had defaulted on. Suddenly, the perfect family image my parents had worked so hard to maintain, the charity volunteers, the community heroes crumbled, extended families started calling, demanding answers. Old neighbors sent messages like, we had no idea what really happened. For once, my parents had to face the world without their mask. Lily texted me the next day. You ruined us, she wrote. I replied, no, you ruined me years ago. I just told the truth. The post kept spreading, gaining millions of views. Reporters even reached out, though I stayed silent. It wasn't about fame or revenge, it was about finally being heard. When I checked my phone that night, one new message waited in my inbox. It was from Mom. The subject line read, I'm sorry. I stared at it, unsure if I had the strength to open it. Because for the first time in my life, I was finally in control. I didn't open my mother's email right away. I must have stared at it for hours, the screen dimming and glowing again as I kept thinking, what could she possibly say now? When I finally clicked it open, the message was short, no excuses, no defenses. Just a few raw sentences. We thought we were doing what was best. I see now how wrong we were. I can't fix it, but I'm sorry. I hope someday you'll forgive us. Reading it didn't bring relief. It brought silence. The kind that settles after a storm, where you can still feel the damage, but can finally breathe. For years I'd wanted acknowledgement, proof that I wasn't crazy, that what they did actually happened. Now I had it, but it didn't heal me the way I thought it would, in the weeks that followed. The internet moved on, as it always does. My parents' reputation was gone. Lily disappeared from social media completely. No more pictures of business trips or luxury brunches. From what I heard through relatives, she was working odd jobs under a new name. My parents sold their last car and moved into a small rental outside the city. I didn't reach out. Not out of spite, but because I finally understood that forgiveness doesn't always mean reconnection. Sometimes it's just choosing not to let the pain define you anymore at night. I'd sit on my apartment balcony, feeling the cool air against my skin. For the first time, the silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. I'd lost a family, yes, but I'd gained something I didn't even realize I was missing. Peace, still. There was one thing left I needed to do, not for them, but for me. I was ready to build something new. Something that would finally belong to me. A year later, I bought my own house. Nothing fancy, just a small, sunlit place on the edge of town with creaky steps and a stubborn front door that needed a firm push to open. The first time I walked inside, it was empty and echoing, but it felt right. It didn't carry anyone else's memories. It didn't have ghosts of favoritism or betrayal. It was mine. I spent weekends fixing it up, one room at a time. Painted the walls a soft gray, planted a small oak sapling in the backyard, and hung a single framed photo in the living room, my grandfather, smiling on the porch of the home that started it all. Every time I looked at that picture, I felt like I was keeping a piece of him alive. Not the structure, but the values he built it on. Honesty, hard work, peace. One evening, as the sun dipped low and turned the sky gold, I sat on my new porch. With a cup of coffee and realized something simple but profound. Home isn't a place other people can take from you. It's the peace you build when you stop chasing their approval. Neighbors would sometimes ask why I lived alone, or if I still talked to my family. I'd just smile and say, they taught me what not to lose. It wasn't bitterness anymore, just truth. The irony wasn't lost on me. My parents sold the house that built me, but in doing so, they forced me to build a better one made of self-respect. It's not guilt. As the wind rustled through the young oak tree that night, I whispered softly to no one, I made it, Grandpa. And for the first time in years, I finally felt at home.